All right, I'm ready to get back into some JNCIA-Junos material here. So this is the entry-level cert for Juniper. If you're just joining my channel or just coming across this video, subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you can get notified when I create new videos. Also, realize that this is one of a few videos that I've already created in a playlist that has to do with entry-level network concepts or gets you closer or takes you down the path of JNCIA study. All right? May not be your goal to get certified. You might just want to get smarter in Juniper for your job. This is going to help with that as well. Okay, so let's get going. All right, what we're going to cover in this video is how to manage a Juniper device and the different types of user interfaces that you have available. There is a web interface known as JWeb, and then you have the command line interface. I'm going to get you going on the console and show you how to do that, how to configure the console settings. We'll probably talk about enabling SSH and telnet in a future video when we cover like initial configuration of a device, configuring an IP address on an interface or an out-of-band management interface, then enabling remote access protocols like SSH and telnet. So we'll talk about that in a follow-on video, but for now we're going to focus on the CLI and accessing it through the console. The CLI is the same once you get on via SSH or telnet. These are just different means to access the CLI. All right? We will also cover moving around in JWeb just briefly, and we will more extensively cover moving around in the CLI, the different CLI modes, operational mode and configuration mode, also how to get help when you're on that command line and you don't know what to type or you want a little bit of extra help about a command. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm also going to show you some shortcuts and some helpful things in modifying configurations, the different types of configurations, the active and candidate configurations, also working with them, and just some, like I said, some shortcuts in how to get around and move configurations around where you need them to be, add them, remove them, and also some CLI shortcuts on how to be quicker at the CLI. I tell you what, as you go through JNCIA and JNCIS or JNCIP, as you get through, or just learning more about Juniper, you really want to be you really want to be good at that command line. And so this is a great place to start. Hang in there with me through this video. It might get a little long, and so there's a process I'm going through that I really want you to follow. You could probably fast forward a little here and there, but for the most part, I kind of take you through the operational mode and then the configuration mode, and then it just kind of builds upon itself. So I hope you can hang in there through the whole thing, and I hope you get some benefit out of this. All right, let's get going. When accessing the command line, often the first thing you will do is you will use a console cable to directly connect to a Juniper piece of equipment. The COM port, you'll need to know what COM port setting your computer is operating on. Mine is operating on COM 5. And then you need to set it for these settings: 9600 speed or baud rate, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, and no parity and no flow control. Okay? When you say open, it will then open up the console. If it's configured correctly, you will then get a login prompt. All right? Amnesiac is kind of funny. It means the device has amnesia, so to speak, like there's no configuration, it's factory defaulted. Okay? And so this is the way to first start configuring a Juniper piece of equipment. It has no configuration on it. There's no IP address. You can't access it over the network. You will need to plug this in and put it in your lab or put it on your desk, or a CO technician, a field engineer, will need to take it out to the field, put it in a cabinet or a rack, power it up. Then they will need to plug their laptop into the console port of this Juniper piece of equipment. Okay, so they'll usually use a USB port on their laptop or a DB9 serial connection, and they'll plug into that console port on that Juniper gear. Now, once you initially log in as root, the user root has no password. You just hit enter. Instead of entering a password, just hit the enter key, and it will drop you into this shell mode. You do not want to stay here in this shell mode. When you log in as root, you need to start the CLI by typing the letters CLI. Later on, we'll configure an actual user account, like user 1 or user Aaron, whoever. When that user logs in, they will not be dropped into this shell mode. Only the user root is dropped into shell. Okay, so again, once user root logs in, the user root needs to start the CLI by typing CLI. Then you're dropped into this prompt where you have a greater than sign. Okay, so I'll tell you right away, this is called operational mode, and there's one other mode known as configure mode. So the two main modes that you need to be concerned with is operational mode, indicated by the greater than sign, and configure mode, indicated by the pound sign. All right, so those are the two modes, operational mode and configure mode. Okay, in operational mode is where you gather information, statistics, interface, status, whether interfaces are up or down, is there bits or bits per second, how much is going in and out of an interface, or packets per second, are you getting errors on an interface, do you have OSPF neighbor states, are you learning routes? All the operational information is gained in operational mode. And again, operational mode is the greater than sign. Okay? Now, to enter configure mode, you enter the word configure, and it puts you at this pound sign. Where the pound sign is where you configure things. This is where you change the way the router or switch or firewall functions. All right, you are actually causing it to act differently or act at all. It's a paperweight. It's doing absolutely nothing until you go in here and configure certain things. Okay, now maybe some switches have the ability to pass traffic without configuration, just with a standard VLAN configuration in it. But routers and firewalls are going to require some network-specific information for your environment, and you're going to need to get in here and get that all configured. That's where you do it, in configured mode. Now, let me show you something here real quick. You can do things for operational mode while you are in configured mode. And the way you do it is with the word run. All right, so let me show you a few things. Here's how you leave configured mode by using the word exit. Now, in operational mode, if you hit a question mark, you get help. This is online help. Question mark tells you all the possible words you can type right now. Okay? One of the big ones is show. All right? So type the word show, space. Now if you hit question mark, it tells you all of the possible words that you can put under the word show. Okay? Now this is only 23% of all the different options. If you hit the enter key, it gives you a few more options, one line at a time. Now if you hit the space bar, it gives you a whole page. Okay, but if you want to slowly go through each one of these, just hit the enter key on your keyboard slowly, and you can methodically go through and just look at all these different options. Again, if you hit the space bar, it gives you a full page, or it gives you a lot more than just one line at a time. Okay, so again, show question mark showed all this stuff. So you can type show interface. Now, right away I'll tell you, if you type the letters SH and you hit the space bar, it will auto-complete the command. Or if you hit the tab key, it will auto-complete the command. If you type INT for enter, or the letters IN for interface, and you hit the space bar, if it gives you a message with this caret, the caret is saying right after the letters IN, there is an ambiguous option here. In other words, it's not clear what the operating system should do. So it doesn't know how to autocomplete this because there's a letter G and there's a letter T after the letters I and N. Do you see what I'm saying? You got the letter ING and you got the letter INT. So if you hit the space bar, it can't autocomplete it until you give it an unambiguous option. So if I hit the letter G and I hit the space bar, well, it can autocomplete it now because the only other option is INT, and that's not an option to autocomplete the letters ING. Same thing if I put a letter T there. Now this is very specific, it's unambiguous, there's no other option, and now if I hit the spacebar, it'll autocomplete show interfaces. All right, now if I hit a question mark, it tells me that I can either hit the enter key and actually execute this command, or I can use one of these options right after show interface. Okay, so if we hit, again, it told us we could hit the enter key for show interfaces. So let's just do that. Let's hit the enter key, and it's going to proceed to show us every interface. There's G000, here's GR000, here's IP000, here's LSQ000. I'm not even familiar with some of these interfaces. Here's a logical tunnel 000 interface. I think that's what LT is. MT. If you hit the enter key, again, it gives you one line at a time, so you can slowly go through these. If you hit the space bar, it gives you, several lines at a time. All right? So now, you're 29% through this. Do you really want to go through all of this information? If you don't, hit the letter Q, and it'll quit. There you go. Now, you can hit the up arrow on show interfaces, and it brings back, you can hit the up arrow and it brings back the previous command. If you hit the up arrow again, it brings back even the previous command before that. And you can just continue going on and on and on, however many commands are in there. I think, no, there might be a way to see all those commands, but anyway, I like the up arrow because you can quickly thumb through. You can go up, then you can go back down. Okay, you can go up and you can go down with the up and down arrow keys on your keyboard. So on show interfaces, again, if you hit the question mark, it tells you have all these to pick from. If we double click this, right click with our mouse character, it pastes it. This is just how you quickly copy and paste in PuTTY. Some terminal emulators may be different, but again, double click with the left mouse key, single click with the right mouse key, and it puts that there. So if you hit enter on this, show interfaces will only show you that one interface. All right, so I'm going to show you a little more about navigating the CLI, but I want to take you back to something I mentioned before. If you're in configuration mode, you can access operational mode commands with the word run. So watch this. Highlight by left-clicking your mouse and dragging. Once it's highlighted, right mouse click once, and now hit the enter, and you are executing an operational mode command from configuration mode. Okay? Just by preceding it with the word run. All right? Otherwise, you need to exit out of configuration, and then you need to do whatever you need to do in operational mode. But that's just a nice shortcut. Okay, so this is some of the things you can do in operational mode, and I'll show you a little bit more. Now, I want you to understand that in operational mode, it's like a hierarchy of commands. You're at the prompt where you have the greater than sign, and if you hit a question mark, you have all these different options. And then under each one of these options, you have several other options. Okay? You have several other options. So it forms sort of a hierarchy. So you use the question mark to find out what those options are. So I already showed you that under the word show you have that. And you know what, as a reminder, let's go back and hit the question mark right there at the root. No pun intended, we are user root. But at the root of operational mode, you know, put a question mark. Here's all your starting options. So let's look at monitor. Monitor, question mark. You have all these different options. If you hit the enter key, it doesn't do anything. It's expecting another command. So monitor interface, question mark. Now, you have to put an interface name. So if you hit the enter key, it's missing an argument. If you put, now remember, you have an easy way to complete commands. If you hit G and hit spacebar, it tells you it needs more information. If you hit GE and hit spacebar, it still needs more information. GE dash, and if you hit the tab key, it will autocomplete a little bit more, but it still needs more information. So if you put the 0 and then hit a space, now if you hit question mark, now it's ready for you to hit the enter key and it's going to execute that. Okay, now it's monitoring the Ethernet port. And monitoring the interfaces is a very cool option. It shows you in real time whether data is going in or out of that interface. So that's just a little sneak peek to how to use the monitor command. You use the letter Q to quit, and it takes you back to the command line. Okay, so again, there's the hierarchy of options. And funny thing is, my terminal is acting up now, so I'll restart it. Okay, I want to show you config mode a little bit more. So I showed you previously, you type configure. Now, just like in operational mode, you can use a question mark to show you all the options right there at the beginning level, at the first level of configure mode. These are all the options. Now, there's two different ways to think of the Juniper configuration. It's definitely hierarchical, just like in operational mode for the show commands. In configured mode, the configuration is hierarchical as well. You can access it and configure it in a hierarchical stanza form, or you can do it linearly. Now, if you navigate through the configuration using the edit command, you will be dropped into different levels of the hierarchy. The way you know what level of the hierarchy you are in is the prompt. Right above the prompt, it tells you. So at this point, by default, when you enter configuration mode, you are at the edit level, which is the top level of the configuration. So again, if we leave, we go back in, you're in edit mode. Now, if you use the word edit and you drop into one of these other levels, first I'm going to show you the configuration. Just type the word show and it's going to show you the configuration. Okay? By the way, I've already set a root password and you'll see that. And there's some things that come pre-configured on this Juniper device, like a name server and various things like that. But what you're looking at is the hierarchy of this configuration. This is one level, system, and it's got curly braces or curly brackets to show different areas of configuration. Okay, so from here to here is the root authentication portion of the system config. Then further down under system, you have name server. There's your start and your stop curly brace. So everything in here is the name server configuration, and on it goes. Under system, indented over a little bit, so you have system and then you have syslog indented over, so that's under system. You then have various things regarding syslog. Okay, so this is the way you look at it in the stanza hierarchy. There's another way you can look at it, and that's known as set mode. I like the set mode configuration, and I operate in it a lot. And so let me show you how to look at this same configuration in set mode. It's show pipe display set. It shows the exact same configuration, but it shows it linearly. Okay, so let me do that again. Let me show you that you can use the word show system syslog, and it will only show you the portion of the configuration under syslog under system. You can also do this with display set. So you're only seeing the portion of the configuration that relates to system syslog, but you're seeing it in two different ways. You're seeing it hierarchically or in a linear set fashion. Okay, a little more about navigating the configuration using the different levels of the hierarchy. If you need to use the word edit to drop into different levels. So edit system is one way of getting into the system level. Now once you hit enter, the prompt tells you that you are now in the edit system level of the configuration. Now if you type show, it only shows you the portion of the configuration under system. Okay? If you type edit syslog, now the prompt tells you that you are in edit system syslog context, and if you type show, it will show you the configuration as it pertains to that area of, to that area of the configuration. Okay? And you can type this show pipe display set, and you will only see that area. So now you're operating only in that area. Some people like to operate from the top of the configuration the entire time. If you want to go back to top, just type the word top, and it takes you back to the top. Okay? So again, show shows the configuration, and I want to emphasize something. You know, it should be becoming obvious now that when you're in operational mode, the word show shows you operational, statistical, real-time information about routes, about protocol neighbors, about interface states. When you're in configure mode, the word show simply shows you the configuration. It's just the list of commands that are in the configuration that actually tell the router what to do. It's very important, but it's not. It's two different. It's the same word, show, but when you use it in two different places, it takes on a completely different meaning. And again, I showed you how to use the word show to show operational commands when in config mode. Just precede it with the word run. All right. Now we'll be getting a lot more into how to configure things in our initial system configuration video that I'm going to do after this one, so stay tuned for that. But I'm going to get you back into show mode, in operational mode, and show you a few more things. So exit to get out of configure mode, and so you remember the question mark is how to get online help, but there's another way to get online help. You can use the word help to show other things. So there we go. Use the word help, and it will explain various ways to get help on the CLI, on the command line interface. You can use help reference and a statement. You can use help apropos. You can use, I think it's help topic is another one, and I'm looking for it. Just type the word help and hit a question mark. So there you go. Help apropos, help reference, help syslog, help tip of the day, and help topic. Okay, so I want to show you help topic. Help topic question mark, and look at all these different topics that you can get help about. So let's type help topic interfaces. Okay, so it's expecting more input. If you get a caret pointing, what it's doing is it's pointing to this section right here and it's saying, hey, right there, I'm expecting another command. So what you do is you just use the question mark and you need to be more specific. Now look at how many options you have. Under Help Topic Interfaces, this is 6% of the total options, and we're still in the letter A of the alphabet. So look at all these different options for help topics about interfaces. Okay, so let's pick one. Police or profile. Help topic, and maybe something a little more beginner level. Let's use help topic interface address. Question mark. So there's a few different options, but if we put a space, there's only one option for this first one. And then a question mark after that tells us to hit the enter key and execute the command. So let's do that. So under Help Topic Interface Address, it gives you some information about assigning an interface address and various types of address families, INET or INET6. It gives you options when configuring an address. Okay, it's just, there's a lot of information here. So if you ever need help about a certain topic, that's how you get it, with the word help topic. Another option under the word help was reference. And let's do the same thing, help reference interface address. In this case, we are getting more specific information about syntax of configuration. Okay, so when you're configuring an address, here's a lot of different options for what you would configure under the address statement of a when you're in config mode. All right, there's a lot here. Tells you the places that you would type the command. In edit mode in configuration, interfaces, the interface name, a unit number, and by the way, we're going to talk a lot about this in a future video. Then the family, and then the address. That's where you would put the word address, right after family. All right, I can demonstrate that real quick. Set or edit interfaces, the interface name, unit. I'm following this help up here. Okay, unit, we'll say 0, family, INET, and this is where you would put the word address. And you would give it an address, and there's all kinds of different options and things. And so this is what this help was trying to tell us about how to configure some of these different options and where to do it. Now I want to show you some things about filtering your output. Very nice to be able to do this. Show interface, and you will get all the interfaces. This is a lot of information. What if you want to filter out and only grab a few things on this screen for every interface? Well, let's say you want to grab every interface and then something about every interface, like the rate. Then you would grab something pertaining to that line. Well, how do you do that? Hit the up arrow, show interface. Now you use a pipe key to execute a filter. Hit the pipe key, do a question mark, and here is a lot of different options and ways to filter your output. grep is a very powerful way to filter your output. And interestingly, grep isn't even shown in here, but it is an option. Okay, you can use find. Let's just say we use the word find to search for the first occurrence of a pattern, or show only text that matches that pattern. So let's use match. I'm going to show that one first. If you wanted to match on the word physical, just put the word physical there, and look at that. You're getting every interface based on this word physical. All right? Now, if you wanted two items like physical and rate, then you need to enclose it in quotes and put a pipe between the two different search terms. Now you're getting physical and you're getting the rate of every interface. All right. Now, as I said before, show interfaces, pipe. grep is a very powerful one, but it's not shown there. However, it is a great command to use, and we can use the same search information before. Okay, now you can further daisy chain filters, and so let's just say we want to grep only the word input, and now we're only getting the word input, or only the word output, or both, just the word put, input and output. All right, so very handy. Filter is a very powerful thing. This is just an introduction to JWeb, the web interface. You can use the root account to log into JWeb. And what I didn't show is the fact that we first needed to configure an IP address on the device. 192.168.1.2 is the IP address that I used. I'm going to get into configuring IP addresses and remote access protocols like web management for JWeb and SSH and telnet in a later video when I do the initial configuration video. This is just an introduction to user interfaces and how to navigate them and things like that. Okay, so let's get back over here. We have, it drops us into configured mode right away. You can click on interfaces, ports. It shows you some of the ports and their states. Okay, there's what is configured on them or what is not configured on them. Over here, if you select an interface G000 and hit edit, it brings up the interface. You can put a description there. You can configure various things on this interface here. Click on monitor, takes you over to a different mode where you can monitor various things, chassis information, events and alarms, view the alarms, date from and to. So there's a lot of different places you can look at information using JWeb. I usually use the command line. I don't usually get into JWeb very often. So troubleshooting, there's a packet capture capability. And you pick an interface that you want to capture packets on. There's a CLI terminal emulator, trace route function, ping. There's a dashboard, and I think you need a Java plugin, or Flash, excuse me, a Flash plugin to make this work. A lot of the newer browsers these days do not have the plugin to actually show this little picture here, but you still get some system information in the dashboard view. Okay, and when you're done, you log out, and it asks you to confirm log out. And once you're logged out, it takes you back to this screen. So that's just a brief overview of JWeb and some of the things you can configure using the web interface. Now I want to talk to you about configuring a Juniper device and the different types of configuration that are in it. When you're in operational mode and you, if you type show configuration, you're actually showing the operational active configuration on the device right now. This is the controlling configuration of this Juniper device. If you type config, it actually takes the active configuration and copies it into, it sends a copy into what is known as the candidate configuration. So the Juniper device has an active configuration actually controlling the device. When you type conf to go into config mode, it makes a copy of it, and you are now interacting. You're interacting with the configuration known as the candidate configuration. This is the candidate configuration. Okay? And so I can show you that by demonstrating that if we set system name server and we configure a name server. Now, if I show system name server, I now see that I have 3 name servers here. You know what? First, let me show you something real quick. The word rollback will remove any commands you have just typed. So the fact that I just did set system name server 1.1.1.1, if I type rollback, it's going to remove that, and it's going to be as if I never even typed it. You know, and I can show you before doing that, show pipe compare is a way to see a pending configuration. So the plus sign says this is going to get added to the configuration. Based on what I just typed, it is going to get added, and any mention of anything above that is simply to say, after this pre-existing command, see that? There it is right there. After that is where this next one comes into play. So I used to think when I would see that, I would be like, what just happened here? I just typed set system name server 1.1.1.1. When I type show pipe compare to see my pending changes, why am I seeing 8.8.4.4 and 1.1.1.1? But it's only a point of reference. The device is, the Junos is simply trying to tell you, after this command, we are going to add, with a plus sign, we're going to add that command. Now, the way that you see that pending change is with show pipe compare. Okay? Now, if you roll back, this means undo any commands that were typed. Typing rollback will remove any pending configuration commands that were put into the candidate configuration. So let's type rollback, then hit the up arrow for show pipe compare, and now we see no pending changes because we just rolled the change back. Now, did any of those changes ever take place? No. They were playing in a little sandbox known as the candidate configuration. It doesn't go into action until you type the word commit. So any changes you do here, any changes you do there only take effect when you type the powerful word commit. Then it writes those changes into the active configuration, and they go into action and change the behavior or the configuration of the Juniper device. So let me show you a little bit more about that. So let's do that again. Set system name server 1.1.1.1. Show pipe compare, there's a pending change. Now, what did I tell you about run, and what did I tell you about show configuration? From the operational mode, it shows the active configuration. You might see where I'm going with this. If we made a name server change here, and I want to prove to you that you are actually operating in a different configuration known as the candidate configuration, while you're in configure mode, type run show configuration, and it's going to show you the active configuration, which should not have that name server command there yet because you have not typed commit. So let's do that. let's type run show configuration system name server, name server, display set, and look at that. We do not have that 1.1.1.1 command because it hasn't been committed yet. So just wanted to do that to show you different ways of looking at things, but also to prove that you're operating in a candidate configuration and the active configuration is in fact very separate. All right. Now, if we want that change to go into effect, we type the word commit. Now, if we want to check the sanity of it, we do a commit check. The commit check did not actually put it into action. As we can see, it is still a pending change, but it checks the syntax and the viability of the command that we typed, and it said it succeeds. So we should be confident that it will work. So we'll go ahead and put that into play. And when it's done, it says commit complete. Now we can exit out. Now if we show the active configuration, we will see that it is in fact in play. If we go back into config and we do a rollback 1, it's going to roll back the most recent change. Once you say rollback 1, you still need to execute that change. You still need to type the word commit. Well, what if we want to know exactly what it's rolling back? Well, you know how to do it. Show pipe compare. Show pipe compare. And look at this, a minus sign. So it's telling us under edit system name server, it's going to subtract that from the configuration. We can do a commit check and check the sanity. The commit check succeeds, so we'll go ahead and commit it. The commit is complete. When we exit out, now when we look for that in the active configuration, we see it is gone. Let me show you if we were to actually configure that and try to exit config mode before we type commit. It tells you that the configuration has been changed, but it's not committed. You're going to be, so the candidate configuration is changed, but it has not been committed. Do you want to exit with an uncommitted change? It will let you. It says yes or no. Now, the word yes means in parentheses that that's the default option. So if you hit the enter key, then you're saying yes by default. Okay, so you have left the configuration changed. This is not a polite thing to do. Don't do this to your coworkers. If you're configuring something, either roll it back, get rid of it, or don't leave it as a time bomb there waiting to explode on somebody that goes in there and finds that there's an uncommitted change and they got to figure out what it is. Maybe they don't know how to figure out what it is. Maybe they go ahead and make other changes and commit their change on top of your change that you left in there uncommitted. Then they get mixed results because they don't realize they're committing a change that was never committed to begin with. And so it's just a mess. So don't do this. But when you go back into config mode, it warns you. The configuration has been changed, but it hasn't been committed. Anybody paying attention should see that. So what I would do is immediately show pipe compare, and you see what the change is that somebody put in there. There's ways to find out who typed that command. And I'll show you that later on when we look at logs and things like that. But I just want to show you that you can leave the configuration altered, the candidate configuration altered, and just sitting there dormant, waiting for somebody to stumble across it later on. All right, so let's roll that back. Show pipe compare. There's nothing there. Now we can safely exit out. Now I want to demonstrate the hierarchical configuration methodology. Edit system, name server. So you can go straight to it like that. Top takes you back to the top. You could have done edit system, then edit name server with the same result, then edit, and look at this. You can type an address with the word edit. We don't have to use the word set. You can just type it in like this. And so now show pipe compare shows us the same result. We are about to add that name server IP address to the configuration. Okay, you could go to the top. Again, you could do show pipe compare. You could commit it if you want to, or you can roll it back if you want to. All right, so that's how you could configure using the hierarchical edit mode. I'm also going to show you, you don't always have to roll back your change. If you have a lot of pending changes, like, say for instance, you were set system name server 1.1.1.1 and set system host name. We're going to call this router 2, by the way. Show pipe compare should now show 2 pending changes. Under edit system, we're adding with a plus sign the command hostname in R2. We're also adding a name server. But if we roll this back, it's going to get rid of everything, and we didn't want to get rid of everything. So let's put those commands in there again. And we've decided we don't want the name server command there. Well, use the word delete. I'm going to introduce you to some hotkeys that come in handy when you're using your keyboard, advancing to and from on the command line. Control W to begin with. Your cursor is at the end of the line. If you hit Control W, if you hit Control A, it jumps to the front of the line. If you hit Control E, it jumps you to the end of the line. If you hit Control W, it removes one full word. If you hit Control W again, it removes another word. If you hit Control W again and again, it just keeps on removing that. Okay? So if you hit Control B, it goes back to a certain space, and then if you hit Control F, it goes forward certain spaces, one space at a time, I should say. Control B goes back one space at a time. Now if you hit Control W, you can remove that one word, and you can look for options in there that you may have wanted to use instead of the word name server, but you didn't want to get rid of the IP address. Control E takes you to the end, Control A takes you to the beginning, Control W gets rid of a word. So those are really helpful when you're just a keyboard jockey and you don't like taking your fingers off the keyboard and you like just moving your cursor around as fast as you can. This is a great way to do it. So where were we? Set system name server 1.1.1.1. So show pipe compare. So the scenario is we have 2 pending changes and we don't want to roll back and get rid of everything, but we want to get rid of one of those commands. Control A will jump you to the beginning of the line. Now you can use your left and right arrows on your keyboard. You can arrow over, or you can use Control forward, which is F, or Control B backwards. But my point is, go in front of the word set, Control W gets rid of it, and type the word delete. Delete will get rid of a previously typed command. Now when you show pipe compare, it only has the desired hostname configuration. Now, why doesn't it have a minus sign in front of the 1.1.1.1? It's because it was never committed. So it's not in the active configuration that such that it needs to be removed and subtracted from the active configuration. It's only in the candidate configuration. So if you remove something from the candidate configuration before it's ever committed, it just removes it, and show pipe compare shows it as if it's not there, because it's not there anymore. So now when we commit, we are only committing the edit system hostname R2 command, and we will soon see this get committed. It takes a little while. And you should see also something interesting that changes with the prompt. Now you see, since we have a host name, the user that you're logged in with the @ sign and the host name of the device. So now when you exit out, if we exit out all the way, now you no longer have amnesiac at the prompt, you have the host name. All right, so we log in. And we're in, we got to type CLI to get back into the operational mode. And again, it's username, @ sign, and the host name of the router. Okay? I'll also show you on Juniper's website, just do a search for CLI Keyboard Shortcuts, and there's some of those keyboard shortcuts and a whole lot more that you can make your life on the CLI a lot more enjoyable and helpful and faster. It's all about being more efficient and proficient, quicker at what you do. A couple other things you can do in the configuration. Here is our configuration. Oh, by the way, something else to make your life easier. Do you see that little more popping up? If you don't like the fact that it's not showing you a full page and you have to hit the space bar to complete that, set CLI screen length. Set it to something, set it to something more reasonable, 60 lines on the screen length. So let me show you that real quick. So now it will show the whole screen because you have changed the length of the screen to be 60 lines. Also, if you're typing a command, and look at that, if the command is longer than the preset width of the screen, then you get these dots here, and you won't be able to use this space way over here on the right side because it doesn't think that the screen is wide enough. So set CLI screen width. Set it to something that's more realistic. Now you can, if this was a legitimate Juniper command, look how much further you can type now. You can use that whole screen width. Okay, so back to what we were doing. Let's just look at the, let's look at the configuration. And if you did not want this configuration to be used anymore, but you didn't want to remove it from the config, you wanted to save it for later, but you wanted to turn it off, you can use the word deactivate. So let's do that. Let's deactivate this name server. Show pipe compare. It is going to be deactivated. It's going to be made inactive. Okay? And we can commit that. And once that is committed, we can exit. And we can see that it is in fact deactivated, but it is still there. Now, if you want to reactivate it, well, you use the word activate. Okay? So just hit the up arrow, CTRL A. You hit your backspace to remove a couple characters, and then hit the word activate, show pipe compare. It is going to make it active once committed. Commit that. And now once that is committed, we see that it is in fact back in action. All right? Now, something else. If you ever want to replace a pattern in the config, let's look for 8.8.4.4 and let's replace it with 1.1.1.1. Hit that, show pipe compare, and look at this. It's going to remove this and it's going to replace it with that. Now this could be very powerful if you have a lot of instances of something and you want to replace all these patterns with some other pattern. And so it's like a search and replace. It'll find all the instances and replace it with that new pattern. Another way of working with the config that'll make your life easier is, let's say for instance, you have a configuration on port 0 that you want to have configured on 1, 2, and 3 also. 1, 2, and 3 have no configuration on them. But you have a standard configuration, like a description, like an Ethernet option of link mode, full duplex, and you want that configured on these other interfaces, but you don't want to sit there and hammer out all these configs. You can copy the configuration of that port to these other ports. So now, when you go look at the configuration of port 1, look at that. And so show pipe compare should show that it's going to, that the candidate configuration has a pending change for port 1. Well, you can do that for 2 and 3 also. Now show pipe compare is going to show that all 3 of those, port 1, 2, and 3, have a pending change. I rolled that config back just to get rid of it. So we see that port 0 is configured and 1 is not. And let's just say that we didn't want port 1 configured. We actually configured the wrong interface, but we wanted port 1 configured instead of port 0. We can rename that to be port 1, and now we see that we are subtracting the configuration on port 1 and we're moving it over, we're subtracting the configuration on port 0 and we're moving it over to port 1. There's a lot of other stuff that we can cover and we will cover as we proceed through these videos for JNCIA material. I really hope you're getting something out of this. If so, subscribe so that you can get updates when I drop new videos onto my channel. Share this with somebody else that you know can benefit from this as well, that's also pursuing a deeper understanding of Juniper Junos operating system and the way that Juniper routers operate. I'm going to say this, Juniper Junos operating system is pretty consistent across all their platforms. Juniper brags about that, and it's pretty true. The only reason I say pretty is because it is true. The core of the Junos operating system is the same across their platforms, with a few differences with some of the capabilities and features that maybe one platform has that another one doesn't have. But the Juniper Junos operating system is common across their firewalls, their switches, their routers, their data center products, their enterprise products, their service provider products. When you get smart with Juniper Junos, you'll see that you are pretty capable to handle yourself in pretty much all of Juniper's product line. All right, well, that covers what we got for this one, and so I look forward to the next one.